Hey, you're going to love our podcast today. We're talking about a lot of crazy stuff that's happening in our world today. First of all, Steven Colbert can. We're going to talk about basic economics of wokeness. We got the WNBA asking for more money, which continues to amaze us as we talk about basic understanding of economics. We're going to get into that. NPR and PBS were defunded. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about another major automobile company that's going broke because of they're going woke. We're going to talk about the Coldplay concert and the cost of adultery. And lastly, we have perhaps one of the biggest scandals in American political history happening, unfolding as we speak. We're going to talk about the Russian collusion hoax. Just a couple topics we're going to hit in our short podcast today. I think you're going to enjoy it.
Hey, welcome to the Ron Johnson Discipleship Podcast.
Here we are, another week of exciting commentary from a biblical worldview perspective on what's happening in our crazy fallen world. Last week we talked about another Hollywood icon being destroyed by wokeness and the Superman thing. Although I do understand there's been a pretty good opening week in terms of money, people going to the movie, but I think the brand has certainly been tarnished.
Probably still lose a couple $1 million.
Could have been. Let's put it this way: it could have been a lot better than it was if.
Sure.
But anyway, the latest to take a dip was Steven Colbert, which when you go to back in the day when I was a kid, I mean, I never stayed up and watched late night TV, but he had like Johnny Carson, David Letterman. The guys were funny. They made jokes. Nowadays, late night is just a bunch of liberals slamming the president or slamming, the more conservative elements of society. So they stopped being funny a long time ago, and now they're just pontificating and pushing their agenda, I guess. Colbert was canned, and some of the people are saying, this is because of Donald Trump, bad Donald Trump, whatever. Let's talk about economic realities. As we chatted, his show last year lost $40 million. He personally makes $14 million. And I was stunned. Over 200 staff produce a show each week, right? Every what is that? As a daily
5 shows a week or something like that.
So 200 staff, and I kept thinking, we got to help Matthew out. You and I mean, we have to get up early, and we got to grind on Monday to get anything worth talking about. I mean, think if we had 200 people working.
I think we need to talk to CBS. I think they spend $100 million a year producing that show, and they lose $40 million. Okay,
$100 million.
We'll take $100 from CBS to produce our show. Buy a nice little plant right here.
Hey, we want you all to know if Doge did an audit for this program right here, you guys are in good shape. We're not spending any taxpayer dollars. In fact, we're not spending any dollars hardly on this show. Yeah, think about what we could do.
We got to submit a request to buy like a cute plant to put it right here.
If we had $100 million, I'm not sure it would be any better of a show. But anyway,
we'll put it to our building project.
So the bottom line, I get amazed at all these social justice warriors who need to take like a basic economics class. Yeah. Like this is a bad show. People are not watching. They're losing tons of money, and they just made an economic decision. Now let's talk about again terrible economics 101. Let's talk about this. Recently the WNBA had a All-Star game. Now, the WNBA has been actually having some bright moments because there's some great young new stars that are really attracting a whole new audience. One of them, namely Caitlin Clark, who I guess was injured and wasn't able to play in this game. But they came out with this wonderful idea to make a political economic justice statement during the All-Star game, and they were wearing shirts where they were demanding that they are paid what they're worth. Now,
what they're owed.
Yeah, pay what they're owed. Yeah. And again, no one's arguing that the NBA and the WNBA have a different pay scale. I think Caitlin Clark's WNBA salary is like $78,000. Well, that's a joke compared to the NBA, but let's just throw this out here. It's not because of economic inequality. It's not because we're not treating women fairly. It's all about budget. It's about generating revenue. The WNBA simply doesn't generate anywhere near the interest or revenue that the NBA does.
The Babylon Bee had a really profound article that I really think describe it in a very concise way. I think we can show it in a second. But essentially the headline is WNBA players demand to pay what they're worth, and now they owe the NBA $400 million.
Because nobody knows this, but if you notice, for instance, on their jerseys, their jerseys have corporate sponsorship.
Right.
Because that means that the corporations are underwriting the costs of the WNBA, and those are the small ones. The big one is the fact that the NBA, wanting to generate interest in the WNBA, underwrites this, as you pointed out, to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's and I saw Angel Reese saying, "We're not kidding. We'll sit the year out." As if that threat is going to do anything economically. They're already not making money, and now she's going to threaten, along with the other players, to just sit it out. I mean, this will result in a giant collective yawn by the by the public, because again, you go there to watch a great game. You want to watch some exciting players. You don't want to see black and white war taking place. You don't want to see thuggery on the court. You want to see genuine basketball take place, and you don't expect it to be at the level of the NBA, because again, men and women are different. So you just want to go watch. There might be a lot of young ladies that are wanting to watch their basketball stars. Maybe they're playing basketball themselves. It's a good thing, but it's become so gross. It's become so woke in its agenda, what they're trying to push. And again, this is just basic economics.
Well, I'll tell you what makes a sport very attractive. What makes an athlete really attractive is when the sport and the athletes are winners. Now, I don't just mean winning like by winning championships. That certainly is attractive. I mean being winners in terms of they don't see themselves as victims. One of the reasons why NBA, personally, the NBA has kind of turned downturn from viewership is because of kind of this diva thing, like we're entitled to all these different things.
Yeah, we just want to see good basketball.
Well, I want to see players with great character who is like, you know what, I'm very thankful that because I'm really great at the sport that I'm able to bring in millions and millions of dollars. And how about some gratefulness for the league, gratefulness for the audience, gratefulness for the fan, the money. I mean, again, so that's why I think that's one reason that's maybe keeping the WNBA from being profitable is the attitude of kind of entitlement to saying, well, we're owed this. Well, what do you mean by how much we're owed? Let's define what that means, because when you're subsidized by that crazy amount by the NBA, as Babylon Bee points out, you're really owed nothing, So that keeps it unattractive.
It's hard for the typical person like you and I for sitting down watching a game, or say we want to actually buy a ticket and go to a game. When you're out working your tail end off, and then you go look at what's being charged to get in the stadium and what's being charged just to get your family like a Coke. And then you find people whining and talking about injustice and not standing up for the national anthem because America's an oppressive country while you're cashing hundreds of millions of dollars worth of checks. I mean, it's like that's a massive turnoff. Well, and I think to your point, it has resulted in lower viewership. And it just hurts the whole business. It hurts the business model. Just be quiet, play great basketball, but that's not what's happening.
I mean, that's what got me turned off on the NFL several years ago. I used to love the NBA. I totally, when all that stuff happened, I just couldn't even look at it, because I watch NBA to be entertained, not to be lectured, not for these athletes to tell me their political views. Like that's irrelevant. I want the entertainment. That's why I watch it. So I simply don't watch it. Now I'm slowly coming back to it because I'm hoping to get the message like, hey, you know what?
Yeah.
Like, let's just do our job. And like all the people who disagree politically, I don't need to offend them, right? But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens to the WNBA. We'll see if they get the message.
So, yeah, that's that. We'll see if the WNBA doesn't just destroy itself because of stupidity. The other thing that was good, and we talked about this, President Trump had talked about NPR and PBS being defunded because they're no longer public in any way, shape, or form in terms of being neutral. They have become just more and more propaganda. Unfortunately, they whine and they squeal and they say, no, we're not biased, but their social media platform would suggest otherwise. So this is NPR, and they said, here's some examples. The coronavirus was created in a lab in China. There's zero evidence for this. So somebody is making that claim. They come right out and say zero evidence. Now we know that was not true. There was a lot of evidence. They just didn't want to report it. The very basis of property in the U.S. is derived through whiteness and through black oppression. So here again, now we've got the Marxist, template, right? We're going to have good guys, bad guys. The white guys are the bad guys. They're the oppressors. The black people are the oppressed. It's pure Marxism. Here's another quote. This right-wing conspiracy theory about eating bugs is about as racist as you think. Well, again, this wasn't a conspiracy theory. This came out of the Davos, gathering of all the globalists who were saying people are going to eat bugs and they're going to like it. Yeah. This is like quotes from these people, but NPR would have nothing for the truth. And then this was interesting. Somebody asked a question to their editor, why haven't you seen any stories from NPR about the New York Post Hunter Biden story? And their response to that was, we don't want to waste our time on stories that are not real stories, and we don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distraction. Now, again, this is ridiculous. Pure distraction? This was coming out during an election year. It showed President Biden's, complicity with a lot of evil and a lot of things that stunk to high heaven. And of course, we knew about his son, about his drug problem, but also about his being put on that board in Ukraine, over which he had no knowledge. It was some power company. It just stunk to high heaven. And for NPR just to bury the story shows, again, their political bias. They knew that could have a potential bad effect on Joe Biden's chances of being elected as president. So I'm grateful that, that we're finally just pulling the plug on all this nonsense and saying, that's great. If you want to be a liberal propaganda outlet, great, but you pay for it on your own dime. With American people should not be paying for this. So I'm rejoicing over it.
I saw the video made by the president or CEO of NPR, or he's a PBS, I forgot which one, I get them confused, basically saying, look, since we're cut, we're not going to be able to show videos of communities and farm events and this thing. And it made it sound like it's this family-friendly kind of like...
So Senator Schumer actually was on the record saying, because of this, people are going to die. That's his standard line. Like, if there's any budget items cut, people are going to die. Oh, seriously, over PBS?
Anyway. And I guess my thought is, how do we feel about, our national tax dollars, our government funding the 700 Club?
Yeah.
How about... Yeah, it's the same reason why we wouldn't fund the 700 Club. The same reason you wouldn't fund overtly political. Well, everything's overtly political. Everything has a bias. That's why the government shouldn't be our tax dollars shouldn't be funding that. No.
Yeah, this should be the private sector, and we should keep our hands out of it. And again, if people want to watch it, the same thing with the WNBA or any other product. If people want to watch it, they will pay what they feel like the product is worth. That's the free market, and it'll either sink or it'll swim.
Well, if you are truly good, trustworthy news, people will come and watch it, and you'll rake an income and you'll survive. If you're producing fake news, propaganda, no one wants to watch it, you shouldn't be supported by tax dollars. That doesn't make any sense to anybody, right?
And I want to applaud again. When I first heard President Trump just at press conferences saying, "You're fake news," and it almost came across like he's being rude or he's being mean. When you recognize that those people there have no desire to report anything true about or unbiased about what you're saying, and that they are out to get you, the fact that he would call it out to me was awesome. I sat there laughing, giggling, clapping my hands, rejoicing, because it's like finally someone that's in a position of power that right to their faces calls them out. And so I'm glad that there's finally some justice, like, full circle justice here, that you're not going to be allowed to keep doing what you're doing. You're not going to be allowed to, no one's a journalist anymore. Everybody's a talking head. And they're just not asking good questions. They're not following the truth anymore. And they've been exposed. And I think even there's massive losses and cuts that are happening because people just are not watching mainstream media legacy news for the most part.
Steven Colbert.
Exactly.
Among other cuts.
And I remembered, some of you listeners will remember, you saw this, the automobile company, Jaguar, who specialize again in high-end, fancy cars, came out with this weird new marketing, strategy that was kind of like the Bud Light approach, right? We're going to push all of this really transgender kind of gender blender, marketing to market these cars, and it was a radical, retreat from where they were and the model that they had been using. And we say on this podcast, and it's not like it's unique to us. It's the truth. You go woke, you're going to go broke because people are sick of it. We saw it with Target. We saw it with Bud Light. Well, now this company, this is crazy. I just read this today. They're planning to cut 500 management jobs after sales in Europe, which Europe is no conservative bastion for the most part. Sales in Europe plummeted more than 97% in April. And again, they're attributing this to last year's woke rebrand. So, this is having a massive repercussion economically because, that's what I love about economics. People are not going to buy or support in companies, brands, products that they don't believe in or that they feel like are actually offensive to what they believe. And here's a perfect example. That's fine. You can rebrand and you can go all in the direction you want to go with promoting LGBTQ causes or whatever. But that doesn't mean I have to buy your car. It might mean it turns me off and I don't want to buy your car. We saw this, with Elon Musk. On the other side, backlash. That's the beauty of the free market. We can choose to spend our dollars where we feel most represent us on the products that we believe in. So anyway, again, it goes from one illustration to the next on this, and sometimes I wonder if anybody in the marketing department of these major corporations are paying attention, because whether it's Hollywood, whether it's Disney, Bud Light, Target, we just saw a massive backlash, from people who are saying we've kind of had enough of this. We like to just go experience your product without, again, having some activist agenda shoved down our throat.
Yeah, they're a little too smart for their own good. I think they missed like you said, the Bud Light message, a little bit behind the curve. Maybe 10 years ago when everything was pushing like the LGBT, the identity politics, that makes sense for them to make that shift. But then for them to make that shift, like I think it was last year, it's like they did not see the writing on the wall. I would fire the marketing department.
Oh man,
you guys are behind the curve.
I think those folks are looking at maybe a possible career change, because I don't know if anybody's going to pick them up after that. That'll go down in marketing history as one of the greatest debacles, right? They'll be talking about that for years to come. This next one again has social media, all lit up. It's everywhere, and I know our listeners have seen it, but it's really tragic. The Coldplay concert, where the CEO of a mega company making huge money was with his HR. What was that title? I thought the title was interesting.
People director or head of personnel, head of people, whatever.
Yeah, of people.
Yeah.
So the person in charge of making sure all the people are taken care of and hiring and all that was evidently having an affair with the CEO, and got called out accidentally. I was thinking of the scripture verse in Numbers 32, verse 23. Be sure your sin will find you out. Here they're at an event trying to be anonymous, And all of a sudden, they're up on a jumbotron. I mean, you talk about getting exposed before the whole world. And now, as you and I were talking about, there's all kinds of funny memes about this. I mean, it's everywhere on the internet. And everybody, we even had to resist the temptation to hug at the beginning of the show, and then for me to hide under the table to reenact that infamous moment. But the sad thing is, again, what this does. I mean, this guy had a beautiful wife, I think 3 children. It looks like this marriage is destroyed. Her marriage, she's married to somebody else. I'm sure there's probably kids involved there. I mean, it just what it does to these young kids, the impact on their lives. We can look at the data from children that are raised in a home where there's been a tragic divorce, especially when they're young, especially when knowing that the reason your mom and dad are no longer together is because of your father's adultery or your mother's adultery. I mean, it's tragic. Those kids are scarred. They live with that for the rest of their lives. These are things that only Jesus really, really heals. And that to me is sad. It goes right back to what does our society believe about covenant, about keeping our word, about faithfulness, about raising children in a home where they see a mom and dad who truly love one another. And it's sad that these people are like, they're not struggling to get by. It wasn't like, we were dealing with economic stress in our home. We couldn't pay the bills. Dad went out and had a fling. These people are at the height of the economic echelon, successful people making a lot of money, a lot of expendable income. And again, to see people waste it all, at the end of the day, what matters more than your marriage and your children? Anyway, it's sad all around.
I think it's compelling to our culture. That's why it's picking all those different meanings, because it's kind of a caricature of like the elitism we have in America today. Like at the height of your wealth and power and money, you're caught in this affair, and then all of a sudden you're brought down. And at least societal wise, social media wise. But you mentioned the destruction to their family, their kids, the shame that their kids feel, the shame that their spouses feel. Yeah. That your husband or your wife is caught in something like this. I'm sure that's really easy for you to walk around with your friends and your circle of friends. But something else I've seen is kind of like in social media. It's kind of like, man, how could they do this in front of everyone? And
it was brazen.
Brazen.
Because they weren't there anonymously. They had, other members of the team,
the company, and that
were there. So it's like, they're not trying to hide anything.
It's just a very bizarre, very unhealthy, very just weird culture that I can't comprehend. But then also the criticism is like, well, why did you do it in public? Why did you guys go to the concert? Instead of just be like, hey, how about you just like be faithful to your wife? How about you just be faithful to your husband?
Why not bring your wife to the concert?
Yeah. Why don't you not? Well, anyways, like I don't know how much condemnation of actual adultery is there compared to the condemnation of you're too brazen to get caught. So
well, isn't that the nature of sin, right? You get prideful and arrogant, and you're the reason for your success, and you're the big shot, and you're calling the shots, and you got a big income and big company and big office, big everything, right? And but again,
you're invincible. No one can touch you.
You think you're untouchable, but sin has a way of absolutely destroying our lives. And I think in hindsight, the guy's going to look back and go, "Really? I flushed all that down the toilet for a momentary fling." I mean, and again, if things blow up, we see this happen all the time. She gets a divorce, he gets a divorce, they come together and they're going to marry, and it's all going to be different. But you're marrying somebody who just cheated on their wife, and now you're the wife. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just apart from Jesus healing all this, and we've seen obviously that happen in our church many, many times where people get healed from poor mistakes, through repentance and turning to the Lord, and even their marriages get healed. This is not the end of the world for these people. Jesus can actually transform everything, but it is the end of the world if these folks don't know the Lord, because that is a devastating wound. And as you pointed out, now it's a public embarrassment. This poor woman is seeing her husband on everywhere. I mean, she can't hide from it unless she just shuts everything off. So it's just tragic all the way around. But on the same topic of be sure your sins will find you out, we are looking at perhaps what some have called one of the biggest scandals in American history. And I appreciate Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, who was a former Democrat. She is courageously moving forward and exposing some of the biggest names in the political game under the last administration. And I'll share some of these names. We're talking about President Barack Obama. We're talking about, at the time, Vice President Joe Biden, Adam Schiff, Bill and Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, James Comey, former director of the FBI, Susan Rice, James Clapper. These were all the deep state power brokers under the Obama administration. And now the evidence is coming out that this whole, Russian collusion thing, that President Trump had teamed up with, Russia to win the election, to move public opinion towards Donald Trump, and of course Hillary Clinton is coming out behind all of this. But what we're finding out is that Barack Obama was at the helm, and he knew about all of this as president. And in fact, this was from Fox News. I'm quoting Tulsi Gabbard. Over 100 documents that we released on Friday really detail and provide evidence on how this, what she called a treasonous conspiracy, was directed by President Obama just weeks before he was due to leave office after President Trump had already gotten elected. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue that is so serious it should concern every single American because it has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. So the $100,000 question is, if they have all these receipts and everything's been brought out into the open, and they've got the evidence. Of course, General Flynn was the first victim that was sacrificed under all these lies. And I've seen him on a lot of interviews now, just pointing out how wicked some of these people are, especially Adam Schiff and all the lying that he did to the American people. The word treasonous is a serious word. It's in our Constitution. It's one of the most heinous crimes any individual could commit against his nation. And when you're talking about trying to rig an election for president, this is serious, serious stuff. So I guess it comes up, whether we're talking about, I don't know, all the other corruption that was exposed. We talked about Joe Biden and all the shell companies that were formed to move money around that was kicked back from Ukraine and from the corrupt government there under Zelensky. The question I think the average American is asking is anybody ever going to go to jail? And I don't know what you think. Are they all? It's one thing to say we've got evidence, and then it makes the news, and then the opposition fights it and tries to discredit it. And at the end of the day, you're like, is anybody going to jail? This is like serious, serious stuff.
Well, I think that's the questions that the conservatives are asking. I think the push, even the whole Epstein thing, is about, can elitists be held accountable, or is it just normal average Joes like you and I who get in trouble, get our speeding tickets, or get our IRS audit, or any elite who are protected, who's got money, who's got influence, are going to one day see justice? Because we know, it's documented over and over again how many of these people committed crimes and whatnot, and they seem untouchable.
Yep.
So here's another dangling temptation or not temptation, but suggestion that there might be accountability to some of the most powerful people in the world.
Think about this. Imagine Barack Obama being tried and found guilty of treason. And then these are household names. These were Democratic power brokers, and we're talking about massive, massive corruption at the highest levels. And again, I think we need to say this openly. as Christians, we can't tolerate massive corruption at the highest level from any party. I mean, and this is where I get frustrated with American culture. We used to have an objective sense of justice. Like, we're all going to play by the rules. In fact, there was kind of a funny mashup of all of these people saying on the news, no one is above the law, no one is above the law, while they were, it looks like, being incredibly corrupt, dishonest, lying, cheating, and really destroying people's whole lives. I mean, they wanted to lock up President Trump and throw away the key. I mean, if they had it their way, this man who was innocent would be in jail forever. And all this lawfare and everything that they did to attack him, the creation of this big hoax that all we heard about for months was the Russian hoax, and it was all a lie. It was all a lie, and it's all coming out now. And again, if who's ever in power can just lie, cheat, steal, destroy other people, hide evidence, create fake dossiers, and then have wicked judges who are hand in glove with what you're doing, with your deception. So now we have the judicial branch that's corrupted. We've got our Congress and congressional leaders. We got the president. We got the deep state, Justice Department, FBI, and all this. I mean, and you're trying to believe in the American dream, when all this is going on, and it seems like nobody is held accountable. That is really scary, and you can see why treason is such a punishable offense. Because if you got people that are selling out your nation. I mean, that's scary stuff for the average person. If they can do that to a seated president, what can they do to us? Yeah. That's just sobering. So, I'm hoping I'll be watching this closely. They asked Tulsi Gabbard very directly, "What are you doing with all this information?" And she said it will be handed over to Pam Bondi and Kash Patel with the FBI. Bondi with the
Department of Justice,
and then it's going to be their job to take that evidence and do something with it. But I think once the evidence comes out, again, there are so many people that are saying, do something with it, And I guess when you're looking at the ripple effect of do something with it, it doesn't get any higher. Like this makes what Richard Nixon did really small. I mean, so much of what's going on now makes that situation that was such a scourge on American politics and on the integrity of the American system. I remember that. I mean, it was devastating. It was shocking that the president of the United States would have been involved in something unethical. I mean, this is at a whole nother level. I mean, people are calling this the greatest, what's the word I'm looking for?
Scandal.
Yeah, scandal in American political history. I mean, so again, because it's politicized, it will all be downplayed by the opposition and finger pointing, and of course the media controls the narrative. So it just makes me wonder. My goodness, are we ever? Yeah, I can't even imagine how long it would take even to prosecute in our current system.
Yeah, and if you go into a D.C. jury or D.C. court, I mean, good luck with that. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot more to be played out. A lot more documents need to be produced, and a lot more talking heads going to process it. We'll see what happens.
When you think about the purpose of government is to punish evil, to protect our nation, like boundaries. Protect our country, right? Protect our citizens. They're working for us. I mean, there's so much at stake here because, again, if we have a government that cannot hold itself accountable on behalf of the American people, like they're working for us, there's just a huge crisis of confidence in the whole deal. And eventually it all comes crashing down. Eventually you just have rampant lawlessness because people just basically give the government their middle finger and say, if it's not going to work for you and you're not playing by the rules, why should I? Sure. And then you just have massive chaos.
Why comply with laws? Why pay taxes?
What's the law?
Why do the straight and narrow when you're breaking rules left and right? the society collapses.
I find it interesting, though. Okay, so we can close with this. We're living in this culture where anything sexual is celebrated. The more bizarre, as long as it is you're being true to yourself, right? But it's amazing to me. You cannot get away from the fact that the law of God is written on the human heart. Why should anybody care at the end of the day that this guy and gal were found cheating on their spouses in public, and there it is on the Jumbotron? So what? Like, if it makes them feel happy, so what? But we still have this sense, like, that guy was probably fired. Mm-hmm. She's probably fired.
He did resign.
Okay, so he resigned. It was interesting when I saw his statement. Mm-hmm. He actually softened it. He didn't say, I'm wrong, I'm guilty, I'm ashamed, I can't believe I did this to my wife, my children, I let the company down. It wasn't that. It was, it's a shame that in a private moment, mm-hmm. like his private moment was invaded when it really shouldn't have been. Like, his anonymity should have been protected. And who put me on the jumbo screen? Mm-hmm. It wasn't, I'm guilty. It was, I'm guilty, but it's sad that I couldn't enjoy this private moment. In other words, he's not repentant. He's really not broken. Yeah. So I still find it interesting from a biblical worldview perspective that if we found out that that somebody in office was guilty of some type of a sexual offense of whatever that is, we would demand that person removed from office, even though we have no moral code anymore. We don't stand on biblical truth. We mock biblical truth. If we told people, hey, there are sexual mores that you should enforce and behave, you'd be, laughed and ridiculed. But when it actually happens, that's not what happens.
Right.
There's actually real consequences.
Right.
And some people still recognize that's terrible that you would cheat on your spouse. Like, cheating is a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. But where does that come from again? It's because God's written these things in our hearts, and you can try to deny it, but you ultimately can't deny it. And at the end of the day, you are going to stand before a judge, and there will be accountability. You're going to stand before God, and you're not going to be able to hide, and you're going to know in the depth of your being that you broke God's perfect, moral, good law, and that's what the eternal judgment's all about. That's what hell's all about, but by the grace of God, we're all in that bad situation. So all I can pray is that this awakens, people's consciences. And I will say this, that there is an awakening. I just saw where, I forget who it was that was doing the big crusade, but the stadium was packed, and the altar call, there was so many people that responded to the altar call. I think it was Greg Laurie. So many people responded to the altar call that the fire chief had to stop people from coming down because there was too many people in that area. So at the same time we're seeing things exposed and a lot of corruption, we're also seeing a great awakening in many, many people's hearts that, we don't want to live this way, and there's got to be a better way. So there is hope that we're returning to our sanity in America, and Jesus, only Jesus can do that. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you sharing this moment with us. Please continue to let us know how you're doing, how we can help you, what you appreciate about the show. I always appreciate talking to people every Sunday when they come up to me and share some things. So anyway, we appreciate you guys. We look forward to being with you next Thursday.